Here's Brody Brazil.
I'm going to make this entire video on a sequence of tweets that I came across earlier today. They come from Jane Slater, who works for NFL Network. To be honest, I don't know Jane. I'm sure I know people that know Jane or work with her. It's a small world in the media community. But actually, I've never even heard of Jane. And I'm not saying that to be cruel or dismissive here. I'm actually saying that in a positive way because that's going to help me address this situation more and take the personal aspect completely out of it. I don't know her. That's actually a good part of this because as you'll see here, some people are commenting on the personal side, which I'm not necessarily going to do. Let's get right into the tweet. Now, the first one, which was retweeted here, or part of the retweet, I posted an opportunity for an unpaid internship, and I'm amazed the comments I get. It's not even for me, it's for someone else, and I would have jumped at it in college. I had 3 unpaid internships in school, double majored, and had a job. Shake my head. A little bit later, she retweets that with an additional comment. One other layer for future journalists, your first few years feel unpaid. I made $16,500 my first 2 years, and I worked harder than I've ever worked. There is a reason not everyone makes it in this business. I don't have time for those of you who don't understand grind. Peace out. Or yeah, the peace emoji. So I've got a couple things to say about this. And first off, I think there is an aspect of being a little harsh here. It is a little bit tone deaf to call out young people for not instantly responding to the opportunity that you probably thought you were presenting and being helpful and being someone who gives back and passes it on to the next generation. I can appreciate maybe the intent. But to rip people for not jumping on this in the middle to hopefully end of a pandemic, and college kids are just trying to figure stuff out right now and maybe aren't up for a free job that they can't even show up for and wouldn't be getting the same, hands-on experience with, it's just a little weird. And I do have some specific points to make about this. You're probably asking, well, Brody, why does this interest you? Why do you need to be commenting on this? Because quite perfectly, it's personal to me. I went through the exact same thing entering the sports media business. First couple years, maybe 7 and change per hour. Yeah, like $7.25 an hour to shoot and edit high school sports games for broadcast television. And I would go to have lunch at, say, a Togo's. I would see the sign on the outside, now hiring $9 an hour. They'd be making more to make sandwiches than I did to do kind of a skill job, a job that requires trust and responsibility. And this is something that's so common among so many people that are in the sports media business. Everybody's got a war story that they love to share and tell and remind people about how tough it was for them to get in the business. And I am guilty of doing this in the past too. We've all been there because everybody kind of hears other people complain and then they want to add in their 2 cents and it kind of just festers and multiplies. Everybody's got a war story. But it doesn't have to be this way. It does not have to be like this where you get paid so little and you get kind of broken entering the sports media world. And I know there's other careers that are very similar to this, where you have to put in an unreal amount of effort and show extreme resilience, and you don't break, and then all of a sudden you start off with a small salary, and then it's in hopes of someday having something much bigger, better, and greater. But again, it doesn't have to be like this for a lot of reasons you can probably figure out and some that I'm going to spell out here. Now, in full disclosure here, I'm also a person who used to fully subscribe into grinding it out and paying your dues. If you didn't do those 2 things, you don't deserve to be here. That's how I used to feel. And I'm not entirely removed from that. Like, I really can appreciate work ethic, grit, stick-to-itiveness. I can appreciate all of that. And I hope I still embody it, especially for people who are 20 plus years into their career. If they still have that passion and they still have that dedication and determination to keep getting better, to keep helping themselves and to sustain through it, I love all that. And I do love people who have a story of difficulty getting into the business and it only made them better. But as I get older, I also realize it is a really fine line of gatekeeping here, even into this business, because how privileged do you have to be to take up an opportunity like this where you're in college or fresh out of college and you're working for free? So you're giving up your time to not get paid, and maybe you have a bunch of time, so you can work 3 jobs and this is just a side experience. Okay, and I can understand that. This is not to make a wholesale right or wrong conversation. I just want to open up the gates and talk about this a little bit more, but you've got to be extremely privileged to be in this situation. I'll share with you firsthand. When I was in college, I worked all 4 years. I worked hard. I worked a lot. I got paid for it. As I just shared with you, wasn't a lot, but I also did not have to pay for college. I also did not have to pay for my own room and board and food and all the bare necessities. My parents and grandparents who saved away for me took care of all that. And I was so fortunate. I was so privileged. I realize that a lot more as I get older and look back on this situation. But not everybody has that opportunity. So now you're really gatekeeping to anybody who wants to get into this business has to be set up like this. A situation where not only are you paying a lot of money to go to college, and by the way, I went to a state school here in California, fairly reasonable, fairly economical, as opposed to some alternatives. But at the same time, you're paying large amounts for that. You're also not getting paid for some of the work you're doing and free time that you're giving up. It's just not sustainable. It's probably not fair across the board. It also sets up what I think is a pretty toxic mentality as you get older in your career, because you're gonna always resent the fact that when you came in, it was hard and you didn't get paid well, and you're always going to be trying to get back for that. Like someday this will even out. Maybe, but not. No. Nobody's ever going to go back and say, you know what? Remember those first couple years when you made a total of, $16,500? What did we say? Yeah, $16,500. Nobody's going to pay you back for that. Oh, you know what? Hey, Jane, those first couple years, here's another $50,000 to take care of that. Retroactive. That's not going to happen. But in your mind, it just, like I said, it creates that toxic thought process environment where you just feel like it's you against them. And it also puts businesses in this weird upper hand of like, well, they'll take whatever pay because they love the job. And that might be true, but I mean, do you think some electricians don't love their job? Some bankers don't love their job? Some pilots don't love their job? Somebody who works at a social media platform doesn't like their job? There's a lot of people who love what they do. That doesn't mean you can take advantage of them because they love it so much and they'll do it for less. Now, let me take a step back here. There are some things that I want to make clear. I said before that I still do, to some degree, I still do appreciate hard work and grinding to a certain extent. What's being discussed here, young people not taking advantage of this opportunity, that's not an example of not grinding. No, those kids are all probably doing something more valuable and lucrative with their time, like growing a YouTube channel here that has thousands of followers and subscribers and pays them already. You know what I'm saying? So it's not because you came up in some old school way doesn't mean that you understand it or should be ripping kids for that. But I do subscribe to work ethic, longevity, and trying to be good over time and always hustling. But I'm also somebody who thinks that there are situations where people get handed stuff too easy. And maybe it's frustrating to others because they walked right into something that took you decades to be in position for. But all I can say as I get older is that time usually takes care of stuff like that, right? If you've really honed your craft and if you've really worked on your skills and if you've really come along, like things will take care of themselves for you. They really will. So to close all this up, I realize that I'm reacting to one tweet here, but I think it's a It's an overall thing with our business and probably a lot of different industries that just because you love to do something doesn't mean that you should be paid far less than you deserve to do it. And just because it's been going on for decades and decades, and that's how I got into it, that's how she got into it, that doesn't mean it's the right way to continue here in 2021 or beyond.